Dr. Jeffrey Halstead has been Canandaigua's hometown dentist for more than 35 years, offering routine dental care as well as cosmetic dentistry, implants, and dentures by their highly trained and experienced staff. Visit them online at canandaiguadentistry.com or find them on Facebook and Instagram.
All right, everybody, welcome into Bills Weekly, the full draft review episode for 2024. Paul Russo, joined as always by Kyle Evans and Jim Sinicropi. Bills able to lock in, and we have a new crop of rookies to descend upon Orchard Park here in just a couple weeks. Boys, ended up being in my mind, when we were here on Friday, I was slightly worried / concerned. I think we all were about how the Bills were going to kind of navigate their draft as it stood. They didn't end up trading out of pick 33, the first pick of the second round. In fact, they end up getting a really good player in Keon Coleman, and they end up really throughout the draft getting kind of what they needed for the most part, and it ends up being, in my mind, a pretty fruitful draft for the Buffalo Bills.
Yes, you're on that side. A lot of fans this morning aren't too happy with the team because they drafted what a lot are considering a slow receiver, and they only grabbed one receiver of their 10 picks. And then afterwards, Brandon Beane spoke, the GM, and said that don't expect any trade. He knows that his names are in, a lot of trade talks. The Bills are in on Brandon Ayuk, but he said don't necessarily believe that. So pretty much what you see here is the receiver class, and there's certainly no true number one. So this team is going to be much different. And I'm not saying, I'm really upset about it, but I just think they should have done more.
Yeah, they traded down twice. Both the teams they traded to picked a wide receiver. And so obviously the Bills were high on Coleman and thought they could get him by trading down. But it's going to be pretty hard for Bills fans to stomach if the guy that Kansas City took has a big year. And then Carolina, I think, drafted, was it Carolina that took another wide receiver ahead of him, the kid from South Carolina?
Was it Leggett?
Yeah, look at it.
Yeah. So they targeted Coleman, not a true number one type of guy, more of like maybe a slot guy or a number two.
Yeah, mostly in the slot. He struggles in other areas.
And they're losing Diggs and Davis, and now they say they aren't going to trade for Ayuk. So I don't necessarily mind the Coleman pick, but maybe another wide receiver or two in the remaining drafts, but they stayed away. So their wide receiving core is really suspect for a team that has Super Bowl aspirations.
And remember, that's originally why they went out and got a true number one in Stephon Diggs, because Josh Allen, was still developing at the time. He's more developed now for sure, but, Diggs helped him big time in his career, and he mentions that all the time. And now you look around, you have a rookie receiver, you have Curtis Samuel, who doesn't have a great resume. Yeah, Shakir, who was a nice.
But none of these guys are
veteran
true number one all-pro candidates.
Yeah, exactly. And like we just mentioned, the background of this pick, they had an option to choose a top 5 receiver in this draft, and they didn't. They decided to trade back. Or they could have been more aggressive and chose maybe a top 3 receiver, but they didn't. They didn't do that either. So I don't know. I guess we have to trust the process, as a lot of people say, and hope Brandon Beane is doing the right thing.
I still don't see how they cannot add another wide receiver to this roster before a viable name brand wide receiver to this roster before opening day.
Yeah, and there are some veteran free agents still out there. They're not great options. I guess a guy that comes to mind, Valdez Scantling, is an option, but that's how thin the free agent class is. It's nothing great at all. It's hard to find. Odell Beckham Jr. Exactly. So
the Chiefs won a Super Bowl in the same situation as the Bills. No wide receivers. Matter of fact, Scantling was on their team, and
they drafted Rashee Rice, and he turned out to be
He was a difference, right?
Yeah.
So can Coleman be that type of player? I don't know, but I don't know. Maybe you, if you got a quarterback like Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, you don't need the stud receiver anymore. Maybe this is the new strategy to kind of get ahead of the pack.
Yeah, and we kind of mentioned it Friday. Maybe that does help Josh Allen, spread the ball around a little more and feel more comfortable that he doesn't have to target that number one guy or that guy that they paid a ton of money to. So maybe this is a good thing, and then maybe we see like Dalton Kincaid, who everyone was high on, get more involved even more.
And Knox is still there. Again, similar to Kansas City, their best receiver last year was obviously their tight end, Travis Kelce. And so maybe the Bills, Dalton Kincaid could become that type of player now that he's becoming, he's not a rookie anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we did touch on, I think, a little bit on Friday. Is like maybe they're going back to what they kind of wanted to do with it being a two tight end set every time, or maybe most of the time. I mean, I don't know. I maybe it's because I like college football. I see a lot of names I like on this list that I've seen throughout the past handful of years, given who is where. The only one that I don't have a ton of name on ends up being maybe the Bills' most intriguing pick, and it's just out of principle, and it's Travis Clayton from the United Kingdom. But then that's through the
Rugby player.
right. That's through the I forget what the proper name of it is, but I think the Eagle,
Guy's a beast.
yeah, the big name out of that is Jordan Mailata for the Eagles through that program. But either way, I look at it in being a Syracuse fan and seeing Keon Coleman a couple different times in the past couple years here. I mean, I'm not trying to sway people. I'm not trying to do a little buy a penny stock here like this is Wolf of Wall Street, right? But he's a dog. Like he's a gamer. He's gonna make in my mind, a pretty big impact for the Bills. I get it. I would have preferred a couple different guys maybe above him, but like if that's the guy that you were set on anyway, I guess maybe it's not the worst thing in the world that you're able to get some draft capital by trading back and still getting him when they got him.
Here's a little fun fact that you mentioned Travis Clayton, the Bills' seventh round pick, the 6'7", 330-pound boxer and former rugby player. He ran a 4.79 in the 40s. Keon Coleman ran a 4.61.
Yeah.
So
That's
Keon Coleman's
crazy.
not even much faster than this guy.
Yeah. I saw a lot of people comparing Coleman in terms of his speed, obviously not like because we don't know what he is yet, but Mike Evans. Mike Evans isn't the fastest receiver in the world, but what he does a great job of is creating separation. So if Coleman can do that, then I think they're in a good spot.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was what kind of made Keon a pretty big number one for what ended up kind of being multiple quarterbacks at Florida State in his years there. I mean, Jordan Travis really the main one, but
Let me ask you a question. Who's the number one receiver at the end of the year next year? Who has the most receiving yards for the Buffalo Bills?
Khalil Shakir.
That's not a bad choice. I mean, it's really, in terms of wide receivers, yeah.
Yeah, because remember, even at the end of last year, he was leading the team in targets over the final 8 games, and I think receiving yards. Remember, we saw Diggs, what was it, 30 yards, 40 yards, and we just came in here and we talk about, like, man, he hasn't scored in 8 games.
I don't miss Diggs at all. Like, I'm not saying that the Bills screwed up by getting rid of Diggs. I mean, I think, was a big part of the problem last year. And he's not the same player that he was, or at least he wasn't going to be in Buffalo. Maybe he'll be re-energized now in a different location, but he was a pain in the neck, So, yeah, well, could it be Kincaid?
I mean, it'd be nice if they used him a ton. I would be all for it. They've raved about how good he is, so let's see it.
yeah, I mean, I was going to say either Kincaid or Coleman would be my 2 picks probably to lead in terms of receiving yards. It's tough because I think what the Bills have right now, it's a lot of hybrid-esque players on their roster. I mean, obviously, I think Bills fans know enough about Shakir at this point, right? But, for maybe those who don't know, like Curtis Samuel, past couple of years in Washington was used as this, flex guy in motion a ton. I mean, I know when you hear that, you think of, Deebo Samuel, but, that was kind of Washington's version of it to a very lesser extent overall. So I don't know what to fully expect from him in that sense, right? So that's why I kind of lean, I think, on that either Kincaid or Coleman, one of the younger guys kind of stepping up in that sense.
Tough to get excited if you're Bills fans for picking up the Commanders scraps.
You know.
And then did you see they added a guy that just got suspended for gambling last year for the whole year?
He was good, though.
Wide receiver Quintez Cephas. He didn't play the entire year
yeah.
last year. Yeah, it
For
seems
the
like he's kind of
Detroit?
big. Yeah.
Mm.
So I don't know. We're gonna be seeing a lot of names that we aren't too familiar with, and I guess we have to hope it works out. Or especially for Bills fans, not for you. You would love to just see your team do well finally.
That's not looking too good either, is it?
I'm the one Washington fan who I think is not thrilled with Daniels, but we did enough on that on Friday. So, yeah, there's one other wide receiver, and I know this isn't draft related, that it caught my attention this morning actually, only because I saw it come across the wire. Jarvis Landry trying to do a little bit of a comeback here would be interesting. I know he's gonna be. It's weird how these contract works. I'm not going to sit here and claim I'm an expert, but he is joining the rookie camp in Jacksonville. So Jacksonville did one reclamation project last year with Calvin Ridley, paid dividends. Maybe they try and do it again. Maybe it's something to keep an eye if you're the Bills. Landry was solid, use of cold weather, obviously, with Cleveland. Who knows? Yeah.
Here's a few names: Michael Thomas, Michael Gallup, Hunter Renfrow. Chase Claypool's still available. Didn't know that. Julio Jones, Allen Robinson,
I
and
don't like any of those
Cole
guys,
Hardman.
is the answer. Oh, geez. Yeah, those aren't those. None of those. If I heard that the Bills signed one of those guys tomorrow, I would be too excited about that at all.
I still have stock in Allen Robinson, so.
But when you mention Brandon Ayuk, and Bean says there's no way they're going to be able to pull off a deal like that, I don't really get it. They just got rid of a big salary cap guy in Diggs, and Davis wasn't. Man, I guess Davis was kind of a bargain, but yeah, but they do have a rough cap situation in Buffalo, unfortunately. So their hands will be tied. But where there's a will, there's a way, right?
Yeah.
And that's one point that the Bills seem to be lacking heading into next season is having a reliable number one guy at receiver.
Okay. Let's take a look at a couple other spots here in the draft. We talked on Friday. Would be interesting to see how they go about kind of bolstering the line on both sides of the ball. They do that in the third round. Dwayne Carter out of Duke, a D tackle. They end up being a center. And Cedric Van Pran Granger from Georgia, been a big part of their offensive line through the past couple of years, mainly those championship teams.
What about Cole Bishop, their second pick
Yeah.
number 60?
Well, he was secondary. I was going to get to him here in a little bit here, but the big fellas, they end up going out there and kind of bolstering on both sides here. Get offensive tackle and Taylor Grable from UCF as well. Edge guy Javon Solomon from Troy. Shout out the Fun Belt. And Duffin, I've never been able to pronounce his last name properly.
Who?
From Washington. Hey, don't be out here doing that to these guys from the formerly Pac-12 now. They're all solid. So it was pretty cool to see the Bills go out and address the interior a little bit. We knew that was a spot to take a look at least based on depth chart-wise that we saw by the end of the year. It was slim pickings for the Bills.
Never hurts to get depth at those spots in the draft, in the NFL draft. That's what the mid-rounds are all about. And a lot of these guys end up being, 10 to 12-year NFL players. So I got no problem with any of those picks. It's hard as a fan to judge or evaluate these guys against other guys. You just look, they're a big guy, they're athletic, and we'll see if they fit in the system. But definitely providing some depth, which is good stuff. But the secondary, as you mentioned too, is that's almost like wide receiver for the Bills this year. They lost a lot, and they got to replenish.
Yeah, headlined by Cole Bishop out of Utah in the second pick for the Bills in the second round. Rated the third overall safety available in the draft. Good player. Also, we're able to get Daquan Hardy out of Penn State in the sixth round at cornerback. So a couple people coming in on that side of the ball as well. As you mentioned, Jim, another spot where they're a bit depleted and needed some reinforcement.
Bishop has a faster 40-yard dash by about 0.6 of a second than Coleman as well. usually you don't think of your safeties as being speedsters. Those are usually cornerbacks, but I mean Coleman, not very fast.
Yeah, I think Bishop is going to play pretty quick too. Just based on who they do have. I mean, they signed Taylor Rapp, who re-signed Taylor Rapp, who was pretty good last year. When he did have to step in, but I just feel with like how thin it is, like you mentioned, all the veterans are gone. He will
Edwards,
have a
they
spot.
signed Mike Edwards,
That's true.
who could be like the favorite to be starting, but also a guy, that could easily be injured, and then Bishop would have to step right in there. I mean, it was a 1-year deal they signed Edwards to.
Yep.
Does anybody get too excited about like DeMar Hamlin or Cam Lewis anymore? Like,
Well, if we're talking from a football standpoint, no, those guys aren't very good.
right?
Um,
Which they are playing football.
yeah, and Hamlin, I mean, there's a reason why the guy hasn't played. It
Yeah.
certainly wasn't because of his incident. He's definitely cleared by doctors by now. It's because he just isn't very good.
Right,
And when he was on the field during that injury, it was because he was playing for an injured player.
right.
So, yeah, I just not sure if we'll ever cut ties with him because just the background wouldn't that be kind of like a bad look?
Not at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's the NFL. What are you gonna do? Like, you only.
Because I feel like they kind of might do that. They got some guys here that could step in and like kind of take his role away.
Yeah, Hamlin can move on. It's fine. I mean, what the heck?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we wouldn't see, oh, the Bills have released DeMar Hamlin, and then we'd hear everyone talk about it like, why would you do that? Blah blah
Yeah,
blah.
he was almost died.
Yeah,
Well, I don't know. I
it's a
think
football standpoint.
Yeah,
That's what people got to understand.
it's
There was a similar thing in NASCAR a couple years ago when Ryan Newman came back after his wreck and clearly was not the same driver, and the team cut ties pretty quick. And there was a moment of quick whatever, but people moved on pretty quick once the performance of the car changed with a different driver in. So
it's how pro
look,
sports work.
I'm with you guys. I don't want to be that guy, but there's only 53 spots on a roster, and in addition to that, another 10 on a practice squad. I mean,
And they have Cam Lewis.
yeah, I mean, you have to make decisions somewhere. I get it. Maybe last year was maybe in that weird, as I call it, PR space where it probably wouldn't have been the best of look, but at this point, I don't think you can be sending him out there if that's your only option, right?
Also interesting is Cole Bishop went to college, played on the same team with Kincaid in college at Utah.
Right.
Not that that's too big of a deal, but just a little something else. So,
Well-
when Bishop comes to camp, he'll
Right.
have a buddy there.
Well, Kyle, you brought up he could be instant impact, and Kyle Whittingham, the head coach in Utah, has been there for years. Pro style program he runs. You mentioned a little bit of thinness, right? I mean, Utah, it's a little bit up. He's a guy who's played through some tougher conditions. I think if he's not starting week 1, I wouldn't be surprised if he's starting week 2 type thing. I mean, this is going to be he's a gamer at the end of the day. One other pick we haven't really talked about a ton, 4th-round pick.
Yes.
Jim, you were the one who actually kind of brought up a little bit on Friday about how maybe going after a running back might be in the Bills' cards here, and they do so with Ray Davis out of Kentucky.
I love it. I love. This is how you get running backs in the league now. You get them mid rounds of the draft. Nobody's paying attention to him. Next thing you know, he's rushing for 100 yards and touchdowns. Davis is a good compliment, I think, to Cook, in that he's bigger and stronger. And you have to have depth at running back because running backs get hurt. But I also feel that in the NFL today, that you don't need to be a special talent to be a successful running back. You need to be a solid guy in a good system. And I think that's what Davis is here. I mean, and it's also the type of thing that it's all upside. He's coming in to be back up to Cook. If he gets his chance, shows what he can do, the Bills might have their running back for the next 5-6 years.
Yeah, he will probably have to, because I would doubt on game day they're going to do 3 running backs on the roster, but maybe they will. But he's going to have to compete with Ty Johnson, who really did look good at times last year.
That's true.
And they both are very similar in size. Looking here,
Davis can catch the
Yeah.
football, though.
Yeah, he's a guy who, to kind of maybe give a full overview, has 3,000-yard rushing seasons at 3 different schools. I think he's like a thicker kind of Darren Sproles type player in a way.
Only 5'8",
I
but he's
don't want
211.
Yeah, I don't think going like Maurice Jones-Drew is a proper comp only because Davis, like you said, Jim, he can catch the ball. I mean, this was a guy that Mike Stoops at Kentucky was having in the pass game pretty regularly. In fact, he's a guy who they said it here in the write-up, but like it quite literally, he can catch it over the shoulder. Not many,
7 touchdown
not,
passes last
yeah,
season, which ties an SEC record.
yeah, not many running backs can do that. Like that's a pretty good pickup for the Bills here in terms of maybe that change of pace style running back.
Yeah, I definitely
You
agree.
like Ty Johnson, though.
Uh, I like Ty Johnson, but I'm just saying that because they did just bring him back on a 1-year deal, and I just feel like since they just did that and they liked what he did last year, they won't just give Ray Davis the job. I
Right.
think it will be a competition, and they have a 2 pound difference. Um, Ray Davis is actually 2 more pounds than Ty Johnson, so they're very similar in terms of weight and like how they're like a big back that you would hand at the goal line or for a fourth down, where James Cook is that flashy guy. But like you said, Ray Davis can also catch, so it kind of reminds me of what the Steelers do with Najee Harris and what's his name? I'm drawing a blank.
Oh yeah,
Who's that second running back that they've been using a ton?
now you got me.
Oh, it's not football season, so I can't
He was
think.
a rookie last
Yeah,
year.
remember they were throwing him a lot of passes in the flat and letting him. They were kind of rotating both. At one time, he was
I do not
he
remember
was
this.
playing more than Najee Harris at one point.
Warren.
Yeah, Warren.
Yeah.
Jalen Warren.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it feels like that's kind of how the Bills could operate, where they throw passes to their both running backs and kind of rotate them a lot.
Yeah.
In terms of throwing downfield.
It's not completely unheard of to have 3 active running backs going at any given time anyway. I mean, that happened with the Bills actually last year quite often, if I recall right. We'd be sitting here talking about both
Yeah, Murray.
Cook, Murray, and Johnson by the end. So,
They
I
probably don't
mean,
have to deal with Murray again lining up out wide for a pass and runs, 2 miles an hour?
yeah. I mean, hell, I think they did 4 active with Fournette there once towards the end too. So, I don't know about maybe having 4, 3. I can see with
Quick fun fact.
yeah.
You mentioned Najee Harris.
Yeah.
Ray Davis, when I said he had 7 touchdown passes to tie for the most in the SEC in the last 25 years by a running back, he was tied with Najee Harris, who also did that.
Wow.
Seven receiving touchdowns for Najee Harris. Where did he go to?
Alabama.
Alabama, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, to me, I just view it as a really good pickup. I mean, it's one of those things where I mentioned on Friday, there was a really good talent pool in this draft, very deep. Not saying that any other draft isn't. I just viewed it as this year, I think a lot of guys graded out very similarly to guys in the first round. I think you could gotten guys throughout the draft like in the first round, So it's one of those things where I look at it and if I'm in the minority, I'm in the minority. I don't mind doing that, but it's like I view this draft for the Bills as a whole as a win in my book. I view it as a win.
It's solid.
I would call it a good draft, but not a great draft. Where other years, I think you could use the word great. I think, like we just said, they could have been more aggressive in the first round. They could have grabbed a better receiver with speed. Before that draft even started, Brandon Beane talked about speed, and here they draft a guy that ran one of the slowest 40s. So I don't know. It kind of didn't go the way I expected, but it is what it is. We're a long ways away. Stuff can, I guess, change, and the team's just going to be so much different. I don't think it's going to hit us until like it actually comes where we see the guys on the field. Like no Micah Hyde, no Jordan Poyer, no Trey. Like it's
No
just
Stephon Diggs,
you can
no
just
Gabe
go on and
Davis.
on.
It's going to be a
It's-
different looking
They don't even
team.
have their center. Mitch Morse is gone, who was there forever.
They did draft a center though.
That's good, but I'm just
That,
saying.
to me, this draft will be determine a success, a sneaky backdoor success thanks due to these 5th and 6th round picks. Linemen, one quarterback, a center. How many of these guys, are impact players by the end of the year or are on the roster next year? Because they really added a lot of good guys that, could be part of the Bills for, several years, hopefully. And if they are, successful draft. If not, I don't necessarily think that they made or broke their draft with any of their first few round picks. Will Dwayne Carter make an immediate impact? We're talking about Cole Bishop probably seeing the field right away, and then Coleman getting that scrutiny because he's not so fast, but he's a competitor. And you look at guys like would anybody consider Puka Nacua to be a number one wide receiver? Especially going into last year. Well, once you see him on the field and see he's a competitor and a gamer, maybe that'll be the same type of deal for Coleman.
Okay. All right, one other thing here, I guess, in terms of the draft stuff. Undrafted free agents, the Bills have actually had probably some of the most success in recent run under Bean doing these picks. Shout out to Syracuse's own Kingsley Jonathan, by the way, one of those. I'd say the big headline for the Bills in this would have to be another running back and son of an NFL legend, Frank Gore Jr. out of Southern Miss, kind of headlining that group for the Bills. Frank Gore Jr. was as a running back because of various things at Southern Miss throughout the past couple years. Was generally called the superback. He was under center a ton, not by his own choice, but by depth purposes. But it's pretty interesting because Frank Gore kind of wound down his career in Buffalo, and now his son could potentially get his going in Buffalo. So one of those, I wouldn't say scripts can't write it, but pretty cool thing nonetheless. A couple other guys really of note, I'd say, for the Bills in that sense. Xavier Johnson Jr., wide receiver from Ohio State. Pretty good wide receiver. Kind of got lost in the shuffle of a couple guys there through recent memory in Ohio State. Obviously, Marvin Harrison Jr., Jackson Smith-Njigba, another one. But was a pretty solid guy for the Buckeyes, and be interesting to kind of see how he does in camp. Keaton Bills out of Utah, another offensive lineman. So he joins a couple other former Utes in Buffalo on a deal to get things going there. A lot of special team stuff, too. They've signed a punter out of San Diego State, Jack Browning. Hopefully ends up better than the other San Diego State punter that ended up in Buffalo recently. But, always one of those things. Interesting to keep an eye on those guys, especially, like I said, with Buffalo, who has a pretty good track record with undrafted free agents recently.
Did anybody pick up Derek Sluka from Waterloo?
I didn't see anything, admittedly, on that.
At this point, we're thinking maybe that he might get snagged late in the draft, but certainly, a signing after the draft, if not for anything, for a practice squad player. But
Admittedly, I'm not seeing anything.
yeah, no, he might not have, because I didn't hear anything either.
I did see a couple kids from Cortland signed, but obviously no true local ties for us here anyway. So, but the NFL draft in the books, rookie camps and OTAs will be here shortly enough as is. So a lot of still work to do for the Bills nonetheless after this, but
Except for us, a season preview show in mid-August?
probably
Yeah,
I'd say
seems like we got a long time now to wait.
Unless there's some big news and we do a special edition.
Right.
And the Bills sign Brandon Ayuk and trade for Antoine St. Brown.
Yeah.
or Amon St. Brown.
Yeah, it's crazy. That I'm just looking. Amon-Ra St. Brown was a 4th-round draft pick. You would have just never known that based on how well he plays.
So why didn't the Bills just, with one of those mid-round picks, take a shot?
Just select another one.
Yeah.
The thing with wide receivers through the years, right? And I mean, Jim, you can really attest to this. It's like the minute something like remotely bad gets brought up about them, and it's just because of the position, right? They'll like drop in value. Like Randy Moss was like, I mean, he was still a 1st-round pick, but like he went from being a top 10 pick to like 20 something, right?
Weed.
Like, I mean, yeah, like who gives a crap? Like he can go out and ball. He can go out and ball. Like
How about Marvin Harrison Jr. with the not signing with the NL with the Players Union?
Oh,
and,
yeah, I saw that.
really?
Yeah, and he's like trying to be like the ultimate diva.
Yeah, Schefter put that out before the draft even started.
I don't want to speak whatever because like his dad obviously is a legend here with Syracuse, but like there's always been something weird going on with that family,
Some
man.
gunplay
Yeah.
after his career, Marvin Harrison, remember?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Marvin Harrison Jr. was dead to me once he didn't come to Syracuse like his dad. So, but he was really just it was a weird looking scene when he at the draft with his sunglasses and and the fact that his dad told him not to sign with the players union.
It's just wild.
He wants to make his own deals. Even though the players union's done a pretty good job of representing NFL players, getting them lots of money and better working conditions,
He does know he can't be like in Madden now, right?
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Like, that's
Right.
wild.
Yeah, all that stuff. Well, he can go to EA Sports and negotiate his own deal, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. I just remember back in the day, now I'm really going to date myself admittedly, but MVP Baseball 2005, there was a big deal because there was a couple players, namely Barry Bonds, who just, because of like his own deals and everything, just refused to be in the game, and that's how you get, like, we jokingly say for baseball, John Dowd's running around on the field in video games, but
Video game legend, Hall of Famer in the video game world.
exactly. So, but it's just like one of those things where it's like, I don't know. I personally, I don't get it. Don't know why, especially in football. I think I would join the space where I knew I would be well compensated post football in that sense and taken care of, but to teach your own, I guess. Anyway, but yeah, that might be it until August, barring something crazy, I guess, for Bills Weekly.
Yeah,
No rush.
Von Miller stays out of jail.
Jesus.
I remember there was a time where everyone thought he was going to get cut, and here he is. He's still on the roster, and they're going to move forward with him. They're
that'd
paying him
be-
a lot of money,
Yeah, a
so
lot of money.
That would be much more of a dead cap hit than I already got to take for Diggs, right?
yep.
So,
Well, I'm not in any rush for football season to get here. I'll tell you that
Well, let's
much.
enjoy the summer.
Yeah.
yeah, agreed. Baseball, golf, apple pie, Chevrolet.
USFL
Yeah.
football, if you want.
Yeah, it's. Have you guys watched? I know I don't want to go too far down any rabbit hole with that. Have you guys watched any of it this year?
No.
It's been
Not a second of it.
so. The only reason why I've watched any second of it was because when I was down in Richmond in the hotel room, there's not much you can exactly do if it's say thunderstorming outside and you don't want to go get hit by a lightning bolt. And it's. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to be that guy who didn't live through it, but like, man, the USFL there for a couple of years early had something maybe going on in the 80s, but
Yeah.
I don't see how it can work
Because
now.
that was back in the day when you had 3 channels on your TV, and and so in April you would turn on and one of the 3 things you could watch would be a football game. Now you can watch college baseball. I mean, you can watch anything. You can watch any Major League Baseball game, any NBA playoff, all of it. So there's just too much competition for it. I think if you really want to do a true minor league system for the NFL, that they would have their season, probably late summer to early fall. And speaking of seasons, Roger Goodell's talking about eliminating a preseason game, adding a Week 18 game, and having the Super Bowl be President's Day weekend, which is the same weekend as the NBA All-Star Game, which just shows the power of the NFL, because they could do that and
Oh, yeah.
nobody will stop them and nobody would care about the NBA
also-
All-Star Game.
It's also Daytona 500 weekend that weekend as well.
So that Sunday could be
Well-
a huge sports day, culminating in the Super Bowl.
Not
But,
gonna lie, I absolutely love that idea. I hate the preseason and more football. Heck yeah.
yeah, I don't mind it either. Get the, and like I say, who cares about the NBA?
Yeah.
The main concern there is, and I didn't fully realize it until actually it was just said during the weekend. This next negotiating period, which I don't think's for another couple years, I could be wrong for the players union and collective bargaining and stuff like that. Players aren't thrilled with having to play on Wednesday this year, potentially on Christmas. I know that, and
I don't like
I don't know.
that stuff either. You really screw up teams.
Rhythm and
right when there's
well,
they
alone
play
the health element of it
Thursday's
too.
bad enough.
Yeah.
But Wednesday's like right in the middle. So it just, I don't, and one of the things that makes NFL football so special and exciting is you only get it for those couple days, and then you talk about it for 4 or 5 days, and then you get it again, and then you talk about it. When you start sprinkling in games every night, it kind of waters it down and makes it a little less special.
And I wonder if we'll get another Black Friday game. The schedule comes out, should be next week.
I would say yes.
Yeah, I mean, but just please don't put the Jets and Dolphins on there. I know they didn't know that the Jets would not have Aaron Rodgers, but man, that was terrible.
That's the other part for me. I don't get is like they have the ability to flex all these games and yet they don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'm because I'm the sicko I am. The only weekday I view working is like the MAC in college football because like they used to have like Tuesdays as like their niche day to get on TV and it worked. And I'm not saying obviously the NFL is a bigger product. Like I'm not
doesn't need
dumb,
to
right? But
make
like
gimmicks to get
right.
attention.
Exactly. And it just feels like they're trying to do that now in a weird way.
And as far as like, flexing, I know there's a lot of issues there with, well, you can't constantly take games away from CBS
Right.
to go to Amazon Prime because you have a contract with CBS and CBS doesn't want to end up every Sunday having, 3 games of non-consequential games at the end of the season. But anyways, like you said, no rush to get to football season. Let's enjoy the weather for a while.
Yeah. We went down the rabbit hole there pretty quick.
Had to fill in a little extra time.
Yeah, hey, I mean, sometimes you got to do that. We see that with draft coverage all the time, so why not have us be part of it as well at that point? So, guys, appreciate it as always. For everybody else, enjoy, as we've been saying. Get out there, enjoy the summer and nice weather while you can. I know this week's, at least locally, it's about as nice as it has been consecutive day-wise, so we're going to go ahead and enjoy that, that's for sure. So, like, share, subscribe, all the fun stuff. We're over on...
Before you go...
Oh, go.
We should be remiss without mentioning Bills legend O.J. Simpson passed away.
Oh Jesus, I don't mean it like that, but like yeah.
Poor Bills have had one of the greats, and he tarnished it. They can't even
Is his name? I can't remember. Is his name on the stadium in the ring?
I'm pretty sure it is.
Sheesh.
Oh well. Anyway, sorry. You continue with the outro.
You're good, Jim. It is crazy though. It's been almost a month. Like, I didn't realize that until the other day. Like, I was watching something. I was like, damn, it really has almost been a month already. Like, either way. But, let me pleasantly dismount by saying like, share, subscribe. We're on Spotify. We're on other major podcasting platforms. We will see everybody in August. Enjoy, everybody.